let me just say that Leah Buley is the author of the book, The User Experience Team of One, and she has, as some people in the area know, she's been speaking and doing workshops and presenting on this topic for some time prior to evolving the material into a book. So she's long overdue to be here giving us this talk. She's a design strategist at Intuit, a company with a unique innovation and design culture, which sounds like a euphemism. She's interested in how complex organizations can embrace and produce good design. Prior to Intuit, Leah was a lead experience designer at Adaptive Path. I think we have an Adaptive Path alumni this month, next month. I don't know if it's a rule, but it's happening. A pioneering user experience consultancy. There she learned how high-performing design teams facilitate an inclusive and transparent design process and began to ponder how this approach could be adapted for teams of one in challenging organizational environments. Her presentations and workshops have a reputation for being hands-on, high energy, and a little bit quirky. So please give a big hand to Leah Buley.
Thank you, Christian, for that lovely introduction. Hi, BayCHI. How are you guys doing? Oh my gosh, so I'm so excited. This is kind of like, for me, being at BayCHI is like coming to the source of the fountain of knowledge. Like, this is hardcore. So this is very thrilling for me personally. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to chat with you tonight. And thank you, Scott, for sharing the podium with me. I'm even more honored to be on the billing with you. Okay, so I'm here to talk about life as a user experience team of one. I'll start off by telling you a little bit about myself, so you know kind of where I'm coming from, and then we'll get into it. This is me in a project room enjoying a piece of quiche, my favorite place and state in life. I have been making digital products in some form or another for over 15 years. Well, back in the day, we didn't call them digital products, we called them websites. So I've ridden that wave with, I'm sure, many of you in the audience. These days, I work at a company called Intuit, which makes financial software to improve people's lives. Some of our most well-known products are TurboTax, Quicken, QuickBooks, Mint, stuff like that. But I didn't always work at big companies like Intuit. It was kind of a long journey for me. I actually started out many years ago as a front-end web developer. So I was writing HTML and JavaScript and stuff like that. And I eventually started to feel that I wanted to have more of a say in actually what got designed. So I looked around at the people with titles that enabled them to do that, and I saw that they had titles like information architect and interaction designer, and so I thought, okay, well, how do I start doing what they do? And naturally, I thought, well, the tools they use are probably the tools that I would need to learn how to use. And so I spent a lot of time figuring out what the tools were that one ought to use. So I figured out how to use Photoshop and OmniGraffle and Illustrator and Visio and things like this. And I gradually became more and more confident sort of pushing pixels around a screen till I got to a state where I felt like I could sort of market my skills as a user experience practitioner. And that began for me a long sort of journey professionally of working in companies as what I would call a user experience team of one, which is to say that I sort of nominally was hired because I was sort of a good utility player and that I could do a little bit of code and I kind of knew how to make UIs and design things, but I had a secret agenda that they were not aware of, which was to surreptitiously inculcate a value system that was focused on user-centered thinking, whether they knew it or not, whether they knew the term or not, or cared about it or not. And this was so fun and inspiring. It made me feel like I had found not just a profession, but a calling, a cause. I was helping to make products more user-centered, make the world more humane in the face of increasing technology. And that was really interesting and satisfying for a while, but eventually I felt that maybe there was more to the craft of user interface design and user-centered design than I had learned sort of hacking it on my own. So I switched jobs and joined Adaptive Path, as Christian mentioned, which was a consultancy focused on user experience. And I thought here, surely I would learn what it meant to really do user experience design. And I did, and it was a very rude and painful awakening. Because what I saw was that my entire approach to what I thought of as user experience or user-centered design had been very singularly focused on this idea of designing screens. or user interfaces. And when I got to Adaptive Path, what I quickly realized was that when you're designing a screen, really that is just the end point of a considered and very important process. And designing a screen really is never just designing a screen. When you're designing a screen, really what you're doing is you're kind of making the manifestation of a number of kind of constraints that have to work together in this sort of beautiful tension to solve business needs and user needs harmoniously. When you're designing a screen, you're not really just designing a screen. What you're doing is creating this thing that is the output of a process of synthesis and iteration and refinement and re-refinement and simplification, 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 and the screen is just that endpoint after much effort. And when you're designing a screen, really you're not just designing a screen. What you're doing is you're creating a series of moments in a larger user experience that probably begins in the real world and ends in the real world, and in the middle has sort of critical moments that help advance someone on the path of where they're headed. And lastly, and most importantly, what I learned was that when you are designing a screen, you are not just designing a screen, you're oftentimes asking people to learn to work in wholly new ways, and asking an organization to change how it thinks about product design. And that is really ambitious, daunting work. It's hard. So all of this gave me newfound respect for what user experience folks do. It gave me new skills. And when I reflected back on the work that I had been doing as a user experience team of one, I realized I hadn't been doing that kind of UX. But nothing was stopping me from doing it, save some knowledge, perhaps. And so that was really the inspiration for what ended up becoming this book, which is the User Experience Team of One, which basically is a kind of compendium of a lot of different methods that are sort of adapted for use in organizations that don't necessarily understand what user experience is, and are adapted for you if you're trying to kind of bring UX sort of under the covers without actually sort of forcing everybody to convert to your religion. So that's what the book is all about. And the whole second half is a kind of reference style sort of inventory of methods, but it all leads to 4 really core principles, which are the secrets of the user experience team of one. And this talk is about those methods and ultimately those principles, and it's meant to sort of re-inspire you to take those back to where you work and sort of spread the gospel of UX. But I'm going to give you a bit of a spoiler. I'm going to short circuit this entire talk. I'm not going to go into deep methods here. I'm actually going to tell you very quickly the actual 4 secrets so you can get the cheat sheet and take it away really fast. Number 1, truly listen, which means truly listen to your customers by doing guerrilla research and truly listen to your business partners by doing stakeholder work. Number 2, make things together, which means make the act of designing participatory and contributive and iterative by sketching and doing sketchboarding and prototyping quickly and on the fly. Number 3, learn how to recognize good enough by creating frameworks that help you help your colleagues make hard decisions about what's important to put into a product and what's not important. And number 4, invite a lot of people in, which is an overarching kind of philosophy that undergirds all these things. You guys are really smart and probably the most senior, experienced group of people I've ever given this talk to, which is why I'm not actually going to give you this version of this talk. Because most of those things I'm pretty sure you already know pretty damn well. And if you don't, you can buy the book and you can learn more about it. Or if you don't want to buy the book, you can go online and there's a variation of this talk here, which pretty much gives you a good approximation of it. So I am actually going to hack this whole presentation tonight for you guys because there are so many friends and brilliant people and loved ones in the audience, and I'm going to give you something a little bit different. And it's actually inspired by a couple of personal developments that have happened in my life recently. So if you'll indulge me, I'll share them with you. First personal development that happened was my first really shitty review on Amazon. I have lots of very sweet, wonderful reviews, but my first actual 1-star review came through about 2 weeks ago. It's now 2 stars because somebody argued with this person in the comments section, and he ended up revising it to 2 stars. But it's a 1-star review. And I mean, the sort of crux of it is this. Books like these that promote craft work and expressiveness, as opposed to skill building and holistic awareness, can only harm the people who read them. But even that is more generous than what this whole review originally was titled, which was, "This should have been a free self-help ebook." So that was a blow to the solar plexus, for sure, if ever there was one. And then that was followed very shortly by this development, which happened in my professional life, which is a product that I was working on at Intuit, where I was leading the design of some icon work, resulted in a number of reviews of the 1-star nature, culminating in language like this: F Intuit and F their new icon. I did that. That was my work, everybody. And then just last week, to add sort of shit upon more shit, a very close relation, a family friend, actually got some sort of press on Deadspin because he works for the 49ers. An internal memo that he wrote actually ended up getting leaked to the press, and everybody is making fun of him now for the way that he talks about his fans. So this is, thank God, not what happened to me. I haven't appeared on Deadspin yet, but it all led me to a really important personal realization recently, which is just, there are so many mean people out there in the world. And I have to say, it's liberating, actually, when this happens to you. Because another important development that's happened in my life recently is that I recently became a parent for the first time. This is my little boy. And when all this stuff was happening, I thought to myself, okay, well, what if this kind of stuff were happening to him? What is the advice that I would want to give to him? And the advice that I would want to give to him is that the solution is not to be so milquetoast that you are unobjectionable to everybody in the world, but rather the solution is to figure out what you believe in, and then say it, and then stand behind it. And so that's the inspiration for where I want to go tonight, which is not to give you guys the secrets of the UX team of one, but to give you guys the real secrets of the UX team of one, which is to say, everything that I did not put into that book because I don't know the answer. And I didn't know it then, and I still don't know it now. And so I'm laying this all out for you guys as food for thought, as a cry for help, as stuff we can all talk about afterwards when we're mingling. But I want to dig in and tell you some real hard truths, I guess, that were going on for me when I wrote this book. So, that said, secret number 1, just actually as a little aside before I tell you secret number 1, so I recently moved into a new job at Intuit where I was leading kind of complex, messy cross-BU sort of strategy projects, and now I moved into a new role where I'm helping with growth and development for our overall user experience community, which is like 200 people, so it's a pretty awesome, sizable group. And what I'm going to tell you guys I would not say out loud at work, because I think it would be demoralizing to people, which is I don't know why some people are really successful in user experience work, and some people bash their head against a wall for decades feeling frustrated. It happens. You meet people at conferences, you meet people mixing at things like this, and there's a lot of folks, and you just can tell some of them have the magic, and they're going to attract people to this cause, and some of them are just going to scare people off like trolls under a bridge. And I've been finding myself wondering, what is it? What is the magic exactly? What makes somebody who's been doing this work for a few years get a lot of success, build support in product management and engineering, and sort of make their way up the chain? And I find myself asking, well, is it just a matter of time? Is it about getting really good at knowing best practices and patterns and heuristics? Is it about being great at HTML or design, or just willing to work hard? And there's no, in my experience, direct correlation with any of that stuff. You can do all that stuff and still not be super satisfied and successful. And I'm sorry to say this, but what I think I see as the most important factor is this, just vaporous, very difficult thing to pin down, which is charisma. And some people have more charisma than others. I think you can make a little bit of your own charisma, but what do you do when you find yourself as this person who doesn't feel necessarily like you come at it with a lot of charisma, and you need to get people to kind of care and love UX. Well, so when I started in consulting, this was the situation I found myself in, and it made me really stressed, actually. I spent a lot of time looking at the people that I thought were really successful, and I tried to figure out what is it that they do that makes them so charismatic? Why do clients love them? And I worked with this guy, a guy named Dan Saffer, who since went on to found a studio called Kicker, and now he's at Smart. He's brilliant. He writes a lot of books. I think he's spoken at BayCHI recently. What does he do? He's just like curmudgeonly and sardonic and really funny. Maybe that's the key. You just have to get a really fantastic sense of humor. So I tried that, but I don't have Dan Saffer's sense of humor. And this guy used to work at Adaptive Path, and I thought, okay, well, what does he do? He's a total kind of badass glass breaker who will say kind of anything and challenge everybody to do everything. And he's got confidence and arrogance out the wazoo. Is that what do I need to just figure out how to have that stuff? And I tried that doesn't work for me so well. And this guy I used to work with, who went on to found About Me, and he is like the most well-dressed, well-coiffured, well-bespectacled man I've ever met, and he's the coolest person on my block. And I thought, well, maybe can I do what he does? Can that give me that charisma? And trying to do all those things bit by bit made me sort of like myself even less. They made me feel less authentic to who I was. And so it all kind of came to a head when I was on a project where I was leading the project for the first time, and I wanted so badly for my whole team and my clients in particular to adore me and think I was just the coolest UX person around. And they just didn't. They just didn't, and they weren't going to. They just didn't like me that much. And to get through it, I had to create a little system for myself. And my system was this. So every day I would tell myself, if you get through this day, here's a little non-work related present you can give yourself. So like, you can go to a yoga class after work, or you can go get a coffee with yourself, or you can go visit that really awesome architectural bookstore. And I got through 4 months of feeling really terrible by essentially courting a habit of not caring so much about work and having other things in my life. And I found that actually led me to become so much more charismatic in the things that I did. So I meet people often, actually, now who say, how can I get into user experience? And it's, some of the answers are obvious. You can work on pro bono projects and develop a portfolio. You can get an internship. There's lots of great online educational opportunities now, or you can go get a degree. But I actually think some of the more important stuff is to go out and become a person of substance and interest in your own way. And those are some of the things that we most desperately need in user experience right now. I will also say, actually spending some time becoming sort of multiverse and well-skilled gives you interesting stuff to talk about when you find yourself in UX conversations, and that's almost as good as being charismatic. So actually knowing a little bit about a variety of things related to UX make you a person of some substance too, definitely. And then there's this other little tip that I've been trying lately, which I'll share with you, and if it works for you, then that's cool, and if not, then you can ignore it, which is, lately I find myself casting the meetings that I'm in, which is to say that I'll be sitting around a table and I will be reacting in whatever way I normally react to people who are saying, like, is that enough user research, or we don't have time for user research, or why don't we make it like Amazon? And what I find myself saying is, well, what's my role in this? Is my role to actually be like the defensive weirdo, or is my role to kind of inspire them, or is my role to do something else? And so when I sit in meetings now, I kind of say, like, who is everybody in this meeting, and what are their roles, and are they going to behave according to their roles, and what will I do? So there's, of course, the guy who's going to disagree with everything and be super explosive, and I know that that's his role, and so it's okay. And then there's someone who's going to bring the voice of wisdom, and I look for it, and I seek it out when it comes. And then there's, just some rabble-rousers and some people who you can rely on to be friends. And I just feel like my role is to be the George Clooney of these things these days, to feel like you bring just magic and confidence and a little bit of sizzle that makes them know it's all going to turn out all right, which is just a good role to play, So that's secret number one. Secret number two. Secret number two is born of the fact that I find myself a lot at conferences where people come up and they explain to me that they're working as a UX team of one in some gnarly situation where they're in this huge organization and they're working on some sad, beleaguered product, and nobody gets it and it's really hard. And they say, what should I do? And this whole book, in a sense, is the answer to what should I do. But the reality is also I have no answer for what you should do. Because some situations are just too hard for a user experience team of one. The funny irony is that UX team of one sounds like it's a thing that would exist in a startup world, but the reality is this book is really written for people in corporations, and yet I don't know what you do in big complex corporations. Because I think when you've got no encumbrances, no legacy code, no complex big groups of people to work with, it's so much easier to make something really beautiful. And you see that in startup culture. You just see so much luscious, gorgeous, focused stuff being developed, and it's all so clean and simple, and it's also connected to like real interesting human behavior. And then you look at the stuff that people have to work on in real businesses, and you just feel so bad. But this is really the frontier. I mean, this is the frontier. This is the work that actually has to be done, you know? So I actually found myself on a project recently at work where my job was, it was a payments-related project, and my job was to help fix, you know, the product, fix the UX of this product that had a mobile component and some other components. And, you know, in theory, everyone was saying fix everything that's bad about this product, but really they were saying fix what, you know, the mobile app. And once I started to get into it, I realized you can reskin or redesign the mobile app all you want, but then what are you going to do when you fix the sort of web or sort of like desktop sort of SaaS experience? And then how are you actually going to go fix the call center experience? And how are you going to go talk to the marketing people and get them to actually make, like, you know, close that giant gap between what marketing is saying and what the product does? And then actually to fix any of this, you have to fix the risk model that actually prevents people from getting in to use the product. And you know, I think we have a lot of really interesting tools and techniques from a service design perspective now that help us see the extent of this painful situation. But if you're one person working boots on the ground and no one in your organization cares much about user experience, you don't really have a lot of muscle to deal with the situation. And that's not your fault. You shouldn't feel bad about that. But that is the reality. And so one of the things that I allude to very, very lightly in the book, but I think of it a lot when I have these conversations with people, is sometimes you just need to quit your job. Your job is really bad. Don't do that job. That's an awful job. And that is just a completely unsatisfactory answer. That is like, I can't say that. That's a shitty thing to say to somebody who's actually trying to make good things happen in the world. So actually, I don't have an answer for this still, but I've gotten really interested in this one question recently, which I want to share with you guys. Have you guys read this book, The Power of Habit? Probably a lot of you, so I apologize if this is repetitive for you, but there's this interesting part of the book. They talk about, you know, like personal habits and business habits and social habits, and there's this notion that comes up in the book of keystone habits, which is this idea of the habits you have that propel your other habits. And they can be the bad habits they propel, but also the good habits they propel. So as a personal, like one example of a personal habit, like apparently if you make your bed every day, you're also more likely to like get all your lists done and like you have good hygiene and go to bed on time and all these other like, you know, paragons of like adult behavior correlated positively with making your bed. And then in the book there's this big case study around Alcoa and former Secretary of Treasury Paul O'Neill, who led it, and how he made their Alcoa's keystone habit safety. And by making safety the sort of keystone habit of this whole organization, essentially communication got better because you had to have good communication systems in order to facilitate safety. Respect for workers improved significantly because if you care about safety, you care about human life. Stock returns like went through, like all these great things came from this one keystone habit of safety. So I've been wondering recently, what is the keystone habit of good UX? I don't know. It's a fascinating question to me. And I'm doing a little research on this question because I think it's actually pertinent to Intuit and the work that I'm doing there. And I'm doing research actually literally right now in this room because I don't know the answer, and I'm curious what you guys think is the keystone habit of good UX. So will you help me with my research? Will you take 20 seconds to participate in a little study? Okay. For 20 seconds, reflect and think, what is the most powerful habit around user experience work that you have seen have impact in your own careers? So think about it for 20 seconds. I'll count it off. Maybe even 15. This is the habit that propels other good habits. All right. Oh, we have a volunteer. Sir, what is the keystone habit of UX in your view?
Figure out to figure out what your goals are.
So to have well-defined goals produces all kinds of other good behaviors on the user experience front. I think that's a fantastic keystone habit. Thank you. For that, for your bravery, you get a book. Yes?
So I'm not a UX researcher, but I'm a research scientist. But
Awesome.
I can relate to a lot of the stuff you're speaking. To me, I think one habit that I felt that has helped me a lot in my career is follow through. So you're in a meeting, everybody has ideas, they're just ideas.
Yeah.
But there are a few people who, take those ideas, go to their desk, and follow through. So when you have that next meeting, you have something to show. It might be a paper prototype, it might be something else, but you've mulled over that and gone to that next step. And I think that really kind of helps with progress in terms of.
I love that. That's so different from the kind of things we emphasize a lot. For that, you get a book. What I really love about that is the sort of the sense of doing something or making something with the material, so you can.
So
kind of advance
to
it,
get as many people in, how about each person formulate a sentence?
It can only be three.
One sentence, like
more of you.
Like as soon as you hit period, we should take the mic away. I'll ask one, which is.
Oh, you can't. No, you can't do
Emotional
that.
honesty.
Okay.
Emotional honesty. That's the model. Just
Okay.
say emotional honesty. That's it. So if you can say something brief and succinct.
I love it. Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay.
The Kobayashi Maru from Star Trek, which is where you find a solution to a problem that's presented to you as insolvable.
What? How do you do that habitually?
Well,
Can you?
cheated, but I mean.
I think you have a copy of the book already, so we'll go ahead to the next person.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I was going to say developing empathy.
Yeah, and I think to build on what Paul said, exactly right. And all the things that exist around that, user research and sort of bringing customers and real people into your environment, absolutely. I agree with that. Yes?
Be sure you really understand your fundamental concepts.
Say more about that.
When you're creating an interface to access information or functionality, be sure you understand what is the functionality, what is the.
Be sure to understand what is the information that you really need.
What is in the real world that you're representing on the screen?
Yeah, so like mapping to the real world and kind of, true meaning of the interface, yes.
So I believe that change is the only constant in this world, so never resist change because it is change that ends up fascinating people.
That actually is that's beautiful. That's sort of like the big takeaway in some sense of the book, which is that people are going to have their own natural sort of fluid, fluctuating responses to what you're bringing, and that if you kind of flow with that, you'll achieve a lot more success. So thank you so much for everybody for all this stuff. I want to talk more about this afterwards because I truly, literally want to codify some of this stuff, so I'm intrigued with your expertise. I want to know your expertise in this area. So thank you for your thoughts, and we'll talk more about that. Okay, so we got a few more secrets, and then I'm gonna give the floor to my esteemed colleague here. So another secret of the book was brought home to me recently at a book club experience. I've had the privilege to do a number of book clubs recently in support of the book, and they're so great because you really talk to a very kind of diverse group of people who are really doing very hands-on work. And I was in a book club in Portland recently, and there were a number of engineers there. And I had been sort of spouting on and on about the things I love to talk about, like interesting moments and customer empathy and emotional design and all this stuff. And one of the engineers said, I feel like what you're talking about is the art of user experience, but I really want to understand the science of user experience, such as how big does the button need to be? Where does the button need to be? How, what should the nav be on the top or the left? And I sensed his good intention, and then I also died a little bit inside because it was just exactly the conversation that you have so many times, and you hope you get to a state as a community where you don't have to have that conversation anymore. And the funny thing that I found is I still don't actually know how to have that conversation. I've just gotten into the luxurious position of being around enough people who believe this stuff that it doesn't have to happen as often. And that led me to this sad acknowledgement, which is I've been doing this for a long time, and I still don't really know the ROI of what we do. I believe it as sort of a matter of faith and personal identity that we are helping to make the world a better place for humanity, but I can't prove that in any concrete, meaningful, long-lasting way yet, and that's unfortunate. I will say there are some people who are doing good work on this front. Not enough of them, but there are some. There's Dr. Susan Weinshank has some interesting work. This is a actual YouTube video that she put together, which I'd encourage you all to check out on the ROI of UX, and she's got some good sort of data points in there. She points to one little stat in that presentation, which comes from this book on kind of how to do engineering, which is that basically, for every dollar spent to sort of identify a problem during the specification phase, it would cost you $10 to fix that during actual development, and then $100 or more to fix that actually live. So that's a kind of compelling figure. You can sort of see it at scale here. Forrester's been doing some interesting research. They've done some analysis of design projects that have personas versus don't have personas, and they've shown that your ROI is like as much as 4 times greater when you use personas than when you don't. That's like pretty good. And it impacts things like site visits and conversion rates and phone calls and service calls and real kind of tangible business stuff. Forrester's also done some interesting work to show that there is a real tangible correlation between long-term customer loyalty and the quality of the customer experience. So that's good. We want to hear that, And basically what they've shown is that people who have good customer experiences are more willing to buy more stuff from that company. They're less likely to switch to other companies, and they're more likely to recommend. So those are promising signs. And then there was some research done recently that showed that companies with sort of good customer experience, good UX, outperform the S&P 500 by 300%. So that's also these are nice, interesting numbers. But I feel that these are all just like tantalizing little morsels, little crumbs that suggest that there is a giant muffin somewhere around the corner. And I don't have that sort of muffin in my mind, not the whole system in place. And so for me, I feel like what I personally need to get to is a place where I can speak with confidence to the ROI of design research, exploratory, weird, open-ended, funky design research, not just usability. The ROI of participatory design that involves real customers and real cross-functional teams. The ROI of taking time to do over what you already did because it needs to get better. The ROI of taking time to set a compelling product vision, even though it just seems very, kind of sort of wishy-washy, but sort of inspirational simultaneously. The ROI of inspiration, of going out into the world and becoming a richer, more interesting person. The ROI of actually having good taste and caring about aesthetics, which is the next front, I know for us, at least at Intuit. So those are some things that are sort of the next step. But in spite of all of these secrets, all of these things that I don't know, so I couldn't put them in a book, I will say I keep meeting people who have the most amazing stories. People who were doing boring graphic design work and now they're passionate because they're UX designers, or people who started out in computer science, but they discovered the grail of UX and they're absolutely thrilled. I keep meeting students who are so eager to get into this work and to make a difference. I'm meeting people who are building out teams. I'm meeting people who are doing, like by hook or by crook, guerrilla testing, bringing in interns, just doing whatever they can to get it done. And no matter sort of how frustrated I get from time to time, it just re-inspires me every day. So that is a really exciting thing, and it makes me so proud and excited that I've found this career to share with all of you. And so that's my last and most important secret. There is a discount code if you want to read the book, which is, I promise, less mushy and weird than this. It's more tangible, very hands-on. There's all kinds of real, specific things you can do in the book. I borrowed lots of iconography from the Noun project for this presentation, so credit where credit's due. And I would be very thrilled to chat with any of you guys more afterwards or online as well. So thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Julie? Yeah. I guess there's time for Q&A. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right.
It's broken.
So I have a comment about the ROI points that you put in. Don't you think the real ROI of good user experience is actually to educate the user that there is something that they don't know about which actually fascinates them? How many of the points you put down on paper over here, the actual ROI of good UX is actually intangible?
I mean, that may well be. And I guess maybe what I would say is, as in everything in UX, the actual ROI of UX depends. I mean, I think when you think about, say, you know, like a MOOC or like online education, to your point, that is absolutely the value of UX, is that you're changing people's lives. But I think in real business terms, there's actually very concrete ways you can measure that stuff. But I feel that there are these, I guess my complaint or my concern in the slides is that it's these little isolated case studies that you have to dig for them to prove anything to anybody. And I feel we haven't done sort of broader.
Can you go back to the ROI slide, just so we can look at it?
So just to repeat that, so you're saying when you look at a painting, there's like the cost of the painting or the cost to make the painting, but then there's the sort of like the gestalt, which is, you know, priceless, as they say. So yeah, I think that is an interesting proposition, I think, that you're making, which is that what we're making is actually like, it's enhanced experiences for everybody, which actually is, yeah, also priceless. Thank you, I like that perspective.
Any others? Leah, I would ask, you know, you said you want to prove the ROI of these, but to the extent that you found a company that found them to be net positive, they wouldn't need to sit around and have arguments with anybody. They would just act on the belief that good taste, inspiration, iteration, and as long as it funded the company, you'd never get into arguments, you'd just be doing it.
I would like to think that's true, but I mean, even taking our own company, Paul and I work for the same company as an example, I think there's absolutely shared belief at a fundamental level that user experience is important and to the good, and yet I think you find teams that need to, you know, make the case for why they have to do research, and so I do think it's hit or miss for sure. That's the work for us to do. So.
I mean, you're saying your work will be to prove this ROI.
All of our work.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, right behind you.
Yeah, about ROI, I don't think it's necessary, nor I think is it actually possible to get an exact measure of ROI for almost anything that's on the board there. But it doesn't mean you can't have a proxy for a minimum of ROI. It's something that would suggest you'll get at least this much. It's not going to be an accurate amount, but at least some way of saying, here's what you lose if you don't do this. Here's where you can go wrong, and that can cost you X dollars.
Yeah.
So our ROI at the very least is to save you those X dollars.
Yeah, interesting. Let's talk more after. I want to hear your specific examples so I can cite you liberally in my conversations. Okay. There was a hand that went up in the back while I mentioned ROI. Do you still want to say anything?
It's a long discussion, but I think to me UX is about the experience. I'm not a UX guy, I'm a backend, but I'm trying to understand you guys.
Thank you.
So, but to me, user experience is about experience more than other things, right? So how do you quantify an experience, right? It's naturally difficult to do that, right? So if we Right. But I think if we think from experience point of view, then that's pretty much invaluable, right? No application can deal without the UI part, right? So I think you should think more about the emotional part rather than the quantified part.
I appreciate that you're here and that you have that perspective and that you're not disagreeing. That's awesome. I will say in the work that I've been doing, at least, I have the opportunity at times to work in some proximity to sort of executive level people, and even though they will talk a good game about caring about emotion, there is just nothing that gets their attention like a bar chart. And I want to get their attention with a bar chart. So I do think maybe we can all challenge ourselves to think about the fact that maybe we know implicitly that this is important, but that there are things we can do to be more credible to the people who make decisions in big companies. Yes. Would you like a...
Here you go, Mickey.
There you go.
Oh, yes. Yes. I can cite some ROI.
Yeah?
ROI of 300% on time spent on user experience research and a 50% reduction in scope of the original scope of the project. And if you're interested, I can have your email.
Love to chat further. That would be wonderful. Thank you. That's really interesting, too, the idea that good time spent up front actually eliminates bloat in the actual end result, which is very compelling. Yeah.
Perhaps beyond the interface, the entire experience of perhaps the company's ecosystem. So I'm thinking, obviously, easy ones to pick are OXO, the company that makes the nifty kitchen tools, Apple, who has an end-to-end, just fantastic experience that goes beyond their software and beyond their hardware. We need to consider that too as user experience designers. That slide that you put up with all the portions of the ecosystem, that really resonates to me as kind of the part that's missing in user experience discussions in most organizations.
Yeah, well, and I think what you're kind of dancing around, which I'm wanting to learn a lot more about myself, is the relationship between user experience and brands, and how those things, once you've kind of got enough of a consistent payoff in the user experience, it creates this sort of amplification where the brand itself just has, I don't know, just like crazy amounts of mojo that pull people into the sort of product experience.
Yeah, outsourcing brands to agencies it just baffles me. It's intertwining the experience design with the brand just seems to be the logical choice for next generation.
It totally
companies.
is, and having done a little bit of work in that front recently, I have to say it's so hard and so busted right now. So yeah, I think there is a lot of really interesting work to be done there. Just it's hard to truly actually think from an ecosystem perspective. It's absolutely necessary, and it's complex when you get into big products, which is the fun. That's like job security, right? Hey.
Okay, exciting last question.
Yeah.
So perhaps just to change the topic a little bit, what is your inspiration and what is the return that you get on your investment?
Oh, what an amazing question. Thank you, Dana. My inspiration. I personally have, well, I think you can probably see it in my presentation. Right now I'm getting all my inspiration from being a new parent, actually. And what that has done for me is made me discover that there are new levels of caring about stuff than I thought possible previously. And for me personally, what that has made me inspired to do lately is find a product that that I think needs to be in the world so badly that I care as much as I care about, being a parent. And so I think it's not just enough to love doing the work that we do. I think you have to be really proud of what you're making in the world as well. So that's the inspiration. And then the return on investment. Yeah, it's, oh my gosh, that's such a hard question. Put me on the spot. It's, I do feel like we are in a really fast-moving new, not just line of work, but like way of living or something. I don't know. And it's cool to think that we're helping to create something that's good. At Intuit in particular, I've been recently interested in this kind of observation about the fact that so many workers are moving from being full-time kind of salaried workers to this kind of freelancer economy, and just thinking like, wow, that's happening, and what does that mean for all of us, for everybody, and how what kind of financial security and sort of self-empowerment and agency are we making possible, and how do tools support that? So those are some things that kind of give me some return. Sorry, I'm just actually thinking about your question, which is making for bad presentation, I think. But thank you for the thought-provoking question. Thanks. Okay, thanks you guys.